If you are new to the channel, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Now let's begin the story. I never planned to still be delivering pizzas at 37. When I started back in my early 20s, it was supposed to be a stopgap, a way to make rent while I figured out what I wanted to do. But life has a funny way of quietly hardening into routines until one day you realize you've been in the same place for years. And honestly, I never saw a reason to change. I worked nights at a Domino's in the middle of Rockford, Illinois. Not exactly the dream city, but not the worst either. The job's easy. My manager, Dave, doesn't breathe down my neck. I know every back street and shortcut like the veins on my hand. And best of all, I don't have to sit in some fluorescent lit office listening to people complain about their weekend plans. When I'm not working, I'm at home with my mutt, Bandit. He's a rescue, a goofy half-border collie who greets me every night like I've been gone for a month. My friends? Mostly people I've met online in games. Destiny, Overwatch, the occasional D&D session over Discord. That's enough socializing for me. The idea of dating, marriage, settling down, it just sounds exhausting. It's a simple life, predictable, safe, or at least I thought so. The night that changed things started like any other Friday. Cold, mid-November air, the kind that stings your ears and makes you wish you'd worn an extra hoodie under the uniform windbreaker. The store smelled like melted cheese and tomato sauce, a smell I've grown so used to that I barely notice it anymore. We had the usual Friday night chaos, phones ringing off the hook, the oven conveyor belts working overtime, drivers weaving in and out of the prep area calling out on a double, or need more bags. Dave stood at the computer tapping in addresses faster than his brain could probably process them. By 10:15 p.m., the rush was slowing. I was leaning against the soda fridge, sipping a Mountain Dew and scrolling Reddit between runs when the new ticket came through. Delivery, 1427 Ashford Street, paid online, 1 large pepperoni, 1 large cheese, a 2-liter of Coke. "Hey, Mike," Dave called, handing me the receipt. "That's yours. Be careful. Ashford's been sketchy lately." He wasn't wrong. Ashford Street was a stretch of older houses and duplexes near the river. Some were decently kept, but others looked abandoned even when people were clearly living in them. I'd had a couple of weird moments there before. A drunk guy answering the door in nothing but boxers, kids throwing firecrackers off porches, but nothing dangerous. Still, I grabbed my flashlight from the glove compartment before heading out. The drive over was quiet. Rockford streets at night can feel like a different city entirely. The busy daytime traffic replaced by empty intersections, and the occasional car crawling by with its headlights off. Streetlights flickered or burned out completely, leaving patches of darkness you could disappear into without anyone noticing. Ashford was darker than usual. Out of the 6 streetlights along the block, 4 were dead. The only light came from the occasional porch bulb, throwing small, lonely pools of yellow across cracked sidewalks. 1427 was halfway down, a 2-story place with peeling paint and a chain-link fence. A van sat in the driveway, an old Dodge with 1 headlight missing. A guy was leaning against it. Tall, wiry hoodie pulled up so far over his head that the shadow hid his face. Smoke curled from the cigarette between his fingers. I pulled in behind the van, killed the engine, and got out with the insulated pizza bag in one hand, the Coke tucked under my arm. "Evening," I said. "Order for, Alex?" He didn't answer right away. He just stared, smoke drifting past his hood. When he spoke, his voice was flat. "What's on them?" "Uh, 1 pepperoni, 1 cheese," I said. 2-liter Coke." He tilted his head slightly. "Pepperoni's fine. Cheese is boring." I gave a small, awkward laugh. "Well, I don't make 'em, man. You didn't order." That's when he stepped closer. Too close. The smell of his cigarette mixed with something else. Oil. Sweat. There was a faint metallic tang I couldn't place. "Hand them over," he said. His tone was different now. Lower, like he wasn't asking. I hesitated. "Look, I just gotta make sure—" The click of a blade interrupted me. A switchblade. He flicked it open with a quick snap and pointed toward my chest. "I said hand them over, fatty." My fingers went numb. I let the bag drop into his free hand without another word. Then the van's side door slid open. 3 more figures stepped out, all in dark hoodies, all with knives. They fanned out around me, quick and deliberate, like they'd practiced it. One, shorter and stockier than the rest, wore a ski mask. He shoved me hard. Pockets. Now. I pulled out my phone, wallet, and keys, my hands trembling. The stocky one grabbed the wallet and flipped through it. $15 cash, a debit card, my license. That it? He said. That's it, I said quickly. The first guy, the tall one, stared at me for a few long seconds, then looked at the others. He's lying. I didn't even have time to react before the first knife hit. The stab came low, just under my ribs, a white-hot explosion that stole the air from my lungs. Then another, higher, toward my stomach. My knees buckled. My mind screamed to run, but my body wasn't listening. They didn't stop. Knives punched into my chest, my side, my back. My hoodie grew warm, then wet. I heard myself making a choking sound I didn't recognize as my own voice. One of them kicked me in the ribs as I went down. Another stomped on my hand, bones popping. Then, as fast as it started, it was over. The stocky one knelt, patted me down again. Finding nothing, he muttered, "Waste of time," and they piled back into the van. The side door slammed, the engine roared, and they were gone. I lay there staring at the streetlight far down the block, wondering if anyone in those houses had heard me, wondering if they cared. Somehow I got my knees under me. My car was only a few feet away, but every step made the world tilt sideways. I left smears of blood on the door handle as I climbed in. I don't remember most of the drive to the hospital. Just red lights I ignored, a horn blaring when I cut someone off, the dark tunnel vision closing in around me. When I pulled into the ER lot, I barely managed to throw it into park before falling out onto the pavement. The next thing I knew, I was waking under harsh fluorescent lights, machines beeping steadily around me. My stomach felt like it was wrapped in fire. My chest was tight, each breath a sharp ache. A doctor explained later. None of the wounds hit a vital organ or major artery. Several cracked ribs, a punctured lung, and heavy blood loss. If you'd been thinner, he said, we'd probably be talking to your next of kin. I lay there for a long time thinking about that, how something I've hated about myself for years, the extra weight, had just saved my life. It's been 10 days since I got discharged. Bandit won't leave my side. My car still has dried blood in the driver's seat, and every time I see it, I get a flash of that night. The van, the knives, the cold eyes under that hood. The cops took my statement, but I know how this goes. No plates on the van, no clear faces, no cameras on that part of Ashford. They're ghosts now. Dave told me to take as much time off as I needed. He hinted that maybe I should find something else, something safer. But here's the thing. I don't want to stop. The quiet roads, the warm smell of a fresh pizza in the seat next to me, the little moments between houses, it's what I know. It's who I am. I'll get my car cleaned, I'll heal, I'll get back on the road. I just hope the next knock on a door isn't another trap, because I have a feeling they're not done. Story 2. I never planned on working in food service again. After high school, I thought I'd land somewhere decent. Maybe construction, maybe warehouse work. But life doesn't care what you plan. My early 20s were just one long list of short-lived jobs. Cashier at a grocery store, quit after a manager screamed at me over a coupon. Night stalker at a big box chain, fired for being too slow. And even a gas station attendant for a summer, walked out after a drunk customer threw a bottle at me. The truth, I didn't handle people well back then. If someone got in my face, I'd either clam up or snap back. Either way, it never ended well for me. By the time I was 27, I was broke, alone, and sleeping on an air mattress in my aunt's spare room in Fairview, Oregon. My aunt didn't charge me rent, but she made it clear, "You need to get a real job soon. I can't keep doing this forever." That's when I saw the flyer. It was taped to the side of a bus stop on Main Street, bright red paper with block letters. Hiring, customer service, pizza prep. Good pay. Meals provided. At the bottom was a tear-off strip with a phone number. I stared at it longer than I should have. Meals provided. I'd been skipping breakfast most days to make my groceries last, so the idea of free food was like dangling a life preserver in front of a drowning man. I called that night. The voice on the other end was warm, confident, maybe mid-40s. Fairview Pizza and Subs. This is Mark speaking. I told him I was calling about the job. He asked a few basic questions. Could I work nights? Was I okay lifting 50 pounds? Did I have customer service experience? I lied about the last one, told him I'd worked at a cafe for a year and loved interacting with customers. Mark chuckled. Good attitude goes a long way here. Can you come in tomorrow at 2 for a quick interview? Fairview Pizza and Subs sat in a squat brick building wedged between a laundromat and a thrift store. The sign out front had a cartoon slice of pizza giving a thumbs up, but the paint was peeling, and one bulb in the open sign flickered. Inside, the smell hit me first. Warm bread, tomato sauce, melted cheese. A counter split the dining area from the kitchen, and behind it stood a tall, broad-shouldered man with close-cropped hair and a thick brown mustache. You must be Nathan, he said, stepping around to shake my hand. That's me. Mark, he said, come on back. The interview was casual, more of a tour, really. He showed me the ovens, the prep station, the freezer and back. There was a side door that led to a fenced alley where employees took smoke breaks. 2 bathrooms, one for staff, one for customers. You'll be working a lot with our senior guy, Chris, Mark said as we came back to the front. He's been here 13 years, knows this place inside and out. Chris was leaning against the soda machine, talking to a delivery driver. Mid-40s, stocky build, thick salt and pepper beard, deep laugh that filled the room. When Mark introduced us, Chris grinned wide and shook my hand like we were old friends. Welcome to the madhouse, he said. Don't worry, I'll show you all the tricks. Something about him was instantly likable. You could tell why customers probably loved the guy. The first few weeks were easy enough. Chris had this way of making even the worst customer seem like part of the joke. A guy once complained his pizza had too much cheese, and Chris managed to calm him down by promising to personally measure the mozzarella next time. The customer laughed and left happy. One night during a lull, I asked him, how do you not lose it with some of these people? Chris winked. Secret weapon. Kill him with kindness. I thought he was just being corny. It was a rainy Tuesday when things got weird. We'd had maybe 5 customers in 2 hours. Round 8, I stepped out the side door for a smoke. The alley was slick with rainwater, the air damp and cool. I noticed a man standing on the sidewalk facing our building. He was tall and thin, wearing a navy hoodie with the hood up. His face was pale, almost sickly, and his eyes, they just locked on the store. After a few seconds, he took a step closer, then another. I figured he might be homeless, maybe looking for scraps. When I came back in, he followed. Welcome to Fairview Pizza, I said automatically. What can I get you? He didn't answer right away. His eyes moved over the menu board, then to the kitchen door, then back to me. Finally, he said in a low, strained voice, Is it safe to eat here? The question caught me off guard. Yeah, of course. He nodded once, then ordered a plain, large cheese pizza. No toppings, he added sharply like it was important. While the pizza baked, I told Chris about the guy. Weird one out there, I said. Asked if the food was safe. Chris raised an eyebrow but didn't say much. When the pizza was ready, I brought it to the man's table. He just stared at it for a long moment. Then he whispered something I couldn't hear. What was that? I leaned closer. Not safe, he said. Then louder. Not safe. Not safe. Before I could react, he shot up from his chair, vaulted the counter, and slammed into Chris, grabbing him by the shirt. The two of them crashed to the floor. Chris was shouting. The man was screaming, Not safe! Over and over, throwing wild punches. Mark came running from the back, and together we pulled the guy off Chris and shoved him toward the door. He fought like a cornered animal until the cops arrived and dragged him out. After things calmed down, the police asked if we wanted to press charges. Chris was nursing a bloody lip but waved it off. Some tweaker looking for trouble, he muttered, but that wasn't the end of it. The next day, one of the officers came back. said they'd found something on the man's phone, something we should be aware of. It was a video, shaky, filmed through the back alley window into our kitchen. The footage showed Chris at the prep table, but he wasn't alone. A younger man I didn't recognize was beside him. On the cutting board was something pale and fleshy, the shape instantly recognizable, a human hand. Chris was laughing, holding a cleaver in one hand, the severed wrist in the other. The younger man fed strips of something into the meat grinder. And then Chris looked right at the camera, like he knew it was there, and said, "Guess we'll make sure this one doesn't end up on the specials board." The cops arrested Chris that afternoon. They tore apart the freezer and found bags of meat that wasn't beef, pork, or chicken. They found bones buried under the dirt patch in the alley. Mark swore he'd had no idea. Maybe he didn't. I quit on the spot. For weeks afterward, I couldn't eat pizza without feeling my stomach turn. Every bite tasted wrong. I still think about the man in the hoodie sometimes, the one who tried to warn me. If I'd listened, maybe I would have walked out that night and never come back. But I didn't. And now, every time I see a pizza joint's special ingredient sign, I wonder. Story 3. I never planned on staying at Clearwater Domino's for more than a summer. Back then, I was just looking for a stopgap, a way to pay off a semester's worth of student loans after I dropped out of Ohio State. I told myself it would be 3 months, maybe 4. Just enough to get some breathing room, then I'd move on. But then rent went up, my car needed repairs, and before I knew it, I'd been there almost 2 years. It wasn't a bad gig most of the time. Decent tips, flexible hours, and the kind of mindless rhythm that lets you drift without thinking too hard about life. On slow nights, it was just me, 1 or 2 other drivers, and whoever was managing the shift. We'd blast old rock on the back speakers, make up dumb games to pass the time, and count the minutes until close. That's the thing about Domino's. It's not glamorous, but it's comfortable, or at least it used to be. The first time I saw Ray, it was a Tuesday night in early spring. Our manager, Jenna, had just hired him as a driver to help cover the dinner rush. Mid-50s, wiry frame, gray hair clinging stubbornly to the sides of his head, and a thick mustache that made his face look like it belonged in an old police mugshot. He barely spoke during introductions, just gave a quick nod and muttered, "Ray." His voice was rough, gravelly, like he'd been chain smoking for 40 years. At first I figured he was just shy, but over the next couple weeks I started noticing things. He lingered in the back more than most drivers, near the lockers, by the supply shelves, or in front of the tiny TV monitor that showed our 4 security camera feeds. The way he stared at that monitor wasn't idle curiosity. He'd lean in close, head tilted, like he was memorizing what he saw. One Friday night, things got off. We were slow. Just me, Jenna, and Ray. Around 10:15, a family came in. Mom, Dad, and 2 little boys, maybe 6 and 8. While the parents were paying at the counter, the kids ran to the window table, pressing their faces to the glass and laughing at the rain outside. I noticed Ray watching them, not just glancing, watching. His eyes didn't move. His mouth was slightly open, and I swear I could hear his breathing from a few feet away. "Hey, Ray," I called out, keeping my tone casual. "We're low on mozzarella. Can you grab some from the back?" Nothing, no reaction. He didn't even blink. "Ray," louder this time. Finally, his head jerked a little, like someone waking up from a deep sleep. Without a word, he turned and walked to the storage room. That moment stuck with me for days. A week later, I was working with Kara, one of our assistant managers. She was on break in the back, scrolling her phone, while I handled the counter. Around 9:45, I heard the bathroom door creak open, followed by quick, light footsteps. I glanced over just in time to see Ray slip from the employee bathroom into the break room. Something about the way he moved, fast, low, like he didn't want to be seen, made the hair on my neck stand up. I followed. The break room's tiny, a table, mini fridge, and 6 lockers. Kara's purse was sitting right there on the table. Ray was next to it, hands hovering just above the opening, as if he'd just pulled them away. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice sharp. He froze, didn't turn, didn't speak. I said, "What are you doing?" Slowly he looked at me. His eyes were blank, empty in a way that made my stomach twist. "Looking for my phone?" he rasped. His phone was clipped to his belt. I glanced at it, then back at him. He shuffled past me without another word. When Kara came back, I told her. She checked her purse. Wallet unzipped, nothing missing. We went to Jenna the next day. Jenna just sighed. "Yeah, Ray's a little strange, but he's harmless." I wanted to believe her. 2 nights later, I decided to test a theory. We had a 4-camera system. One pointed at the register, one at the door, one at the prep station, and one in the back hallway leading to the break room and bathrooms. The feed was grainy, but good enough. When Ray left on a delivery, I pulled up the camera footage from the night before, and there it was. Ray standing in the back hallway, just outside the employee bathroom. The door was slightly open. Inside was Kara, fixing her hair in the mirror, completely unaware he was there. He stood there for nearly 2 minutes, not moving, just staring. My hands felt cold on the keyboard. I didn't tell Kara right away, but 2 nights later, Ray crossed the line again. It was slow. Around 10 p.m., I stepped outside to take a call. When I came back in, Ray was nowhere near the counter. I heard something from the back. Quietly, I walked to the break room door and pushed it open. Ray was standing at Kara's locker. The door was slightly open, and his hands were inside. "What the hell are you doing?" I snapped. He jumped, eyes wide. Nothing. I was just, get the hell out of here." For the first time, I saw something like fear in his face. He muttered something under his breath, grabbed his jacket, and left. I locked the door behind him. The next day, I showed Jenna the footage of him at Kara's locker, plus the hallway clip from earlier. This time, she didn't brush it off. Ray was fired on the spot. She even called the police, but they said there wasn't enough for charges. That night, I couldn't shake a bad feeling. I went through older security footage, scanning for anything I might have missed, and I found it. 2 weeks earlier, at 2:04 a.m., long after closing, Ray came back. He had a key. He unlocked the back door, went straight to the break room, opened Kara's locker, pulled out her work shirt, and held it to his face for almost a full minute. Then he folded it neatly, put it back, and left. I never saw Ray again after that, but for weeks, every time the door chime rang, I'd glance up, half expecting him to be standing there. And some nights, when it was late and the store was quiet and I caught movement on the grainy corner of the security feed, I'd find myself holding my breath, wondering if Ray had found another way inside. Story 4, I never planned on becoming a regular anywhere. It just sort of happened. Life as a single mom in a mid-sized town like Maplewood, Ohio, doesn't give you much room to breathe. I worked the night shift at St. Luke's Medical Center as a CNA. 12 hours on my feet, most of them spent lifting, cleaning, and helping people who are too sick to help themselves. By the time I clock out, my legs feel like wet sandbags and my brain is running on fumes. That's when the temptation hits. No pots, no pans, no dishes. Just call Domino's, swipe the card, and let someone else deal with dinner. My son Caleb is 10, sweet kid, doesn't complain, doesn't ask for much. His favorite food? Pepperoni pizza, preferably with extra cheese. That was our safe meal. He'd eat it every single night if I let him, and on nights I was too tired to cook, I gave in. We used the same Domino's every time. A small location on the corner of Elm Street and 9th, tucked between a nail salon and a tax prep place. Not the best neighborhood, but it was 3 minutes from our apartment. The first couple times I went in, it felt normal enough. Fluorescent lights, the faint smell of tomato sauce, the standard laminated menu behind the counter. But over time, I noticed something. The place was always empty. I don't mean slow night empty. I mean every single time. No customers, no delivery drivers coming or going, just the same 2 employees. One was the manager, or at least I assumed he was, a broad-shouldered guy in his late 30s named Brian. Buzz cut, permanent frown lines, and this heavy, methodical way of moving, like nothing in the world could rush him. The other was the cashier, Kevin. That's the one who made my skin crawl. Kevin was thin, jittery, with greasy blonde hair that always looked like it needed a wash. He talked too much, laughed too loud, and had this habit of leaning across the counter like he was hungry for something more than conversation. At first, he was just awkward. "Busy day? You live around here?" Harmless small talk, but the more I came in, the more personal his questions got. "What floor do you live on? Is it just you and your boy? You working late tonight?" I'd give vague answers, try to keep it polite, but Kevin didn't take hints. If I ignored a question, he'd just repeat it, slower, like I didn't hear him. One night in December, I picked up an order and he smirked. "You always come in after work. Guess I know your schedule now." It was meant to sound friendly. It didn't. By February, I started to dread going in. But Domino's was cheap and Caleb never complained. That's the trap tired parents fall into. Convenience wins over discomfort. Then came Valentine's Day. I'd just finished a brutal double shift. Snow was falling in that slow, heavy way that makes the world feel muffled. I didn't want to cook. I didn't even want to talk. I just wanted to hand over my card, take the box, and go home. When I walked in, Kevin was leaning against the counter, scrolling his phone. He looked up, his mouth curling into that too-wide grin. "Well, look who's spending Valentine's alone." I sighed. "Just here for a pizza, Kevin." "Come on, that's no way to spend the night. A woman like you should be out with someone who knows how to treat her." "Order, please." My voice came out sharper than I intended. That's when his smile shifted. Still there, but his eyes went flat. "You think you're better than me, huh? You don't know me, but I know you." Before I could answer, Brian's voice came from the kitchen. Low, firm. "Kevin, enough." Kevin's jaw tightened. He punched my order into the register without another word. When I got home, I set the pizza on the table, called Caleb in, and opened the box. Something was off. The smell was sour, damp. Caleb took one bite and gagged. I flipped a slice over. The bottom was black, fuzzy with mold. My stomach flipped. Caleb ran to the sink, spitting and rinsing his mouth. I grabbed my phone and called the store. Kevin answered. His voice was different. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That should never have happened. Let me make it up to you. I'll bring a fresh pizza myself right now. No charge." I wanted to tell him to forget it, but I was furious, tired, and too focused on calming Caleb to think clearly. Against my better judgment, I gave him my address. 15 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Kevin was standing there. No uniform, just jeans and a hoodie. The pizza box in his hands, that grin back on his face. "You've got a nice place," he said, leaning forward. "Mind if I come in?" I snatched the box from him and pushed the door. "Good night, Kevin." His foot slid into the gap. "Don't do that. You really shouldn't talk to me like that." I shoved harder, slamming the door on his shoe. He yelped, stumbling back, and I locked it immediately. For the next 5 minutes, he stood outside, pounding and shouting. "Ungrateful bitch! You think you're too good for me? You'll regret this." Then silence. When I finally opened the box, the second pizza was moldy too. I called corporate. Nothing. I went to the police. They said unless he came inside or hurt me, there was no crime. So I posted the story online. It went viral. A month later, the Domino's shut down. But that doesn't help me sleep, because Kevin still knows my address. And sometimes when I take the trash out late at night, I swear I see a figure across the street, just standing there, watching. Story 5. I never thought much about late shifts. In fact, I used to like them. Most people hate working nights. The fatigue, the way your body aches by 2 a.m., how you feel like the rest of the world is sleeping while you're stuck under harsh fluorescent lights. But for me, nights at Domino's on Maple Street felt quieter, calmer, almost like the city belonged to me. I'd been working there for just over 7 months. Before that, I'd bounced between jobs. A short stint at a gas station, 3 months stocking shelves at a Walmart, 2 weeks as a dishwasher at a diner before the owner decided his nephew needed the hours more than me. I wasn't exactly building a career, but Domino's paid better than most of my other gigs. And the manager, Kevin, didn't hover or bark orders. The location was in Fairwood, Indiana, a small college town where the campus basically was the town. By day, it was coffee shops, bookstore crowds, and professors carrying way too many papers. By night, especially Thursdays through Saturdays, it turned into packs of loud, half-drunk students chasing each other down sidewalks and spilling into late-night food spots. Most of our regular night shift customers were harmless. Tired grad students cramming for exams, factory workers on their way home, delivery drivers from other places stopping by for a quick bite. Sure, we got the occasional creep or oddball, but they'd usually just mumble, pay, and leave. Nothing ever felt dangerous until that night. It was a Thursday in early March, windy, cold enough that the air bit at your skin. The rush had mostly passed by 11:15 p.m., leaving just me and Tyler on shift. Tyler had been there 2 years, tall and wiry with a mop of dark hair and a habit of balancing pizza boxes on his head to make me laugh. He usually handled the register while I boxed orders or made runs when we were short on delivery drivers. That night, though, I was stuck inside. One of our drivers had called out sick, so Kevin had asked me to cover the closing duties while Tyler took care of front of house. I didn't mind. I actually liked the rhythm of late-night cleanup, folding boxes, wiping counters, stacking trays. Around 11:40, a group of 3 college kids stumbled in, all wearing jackets that didn't look warm enough for the weather. They laughed too loud, leaned on each other, and smelled faintly of whiskey and cheap beer. Tyler rang them up while I loaded dough trays into the walk-in. The front door chimed again. "Evening," Tyler said, not looking up from the register. I came out from the prep area, brushing flour off my hands, and saw him. A man, mid-30s maybe, with long, messy blonde hair brushing his shoulders. He wore faded jeans and a dark hoodie, the sleeves pulled halfway over his hands. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then I noticed he didn't walk up to the counter. He just stepped inside, stopped, and stared. Not at the menu, not at Tyler, at me. I busied myself with the stack of boxes near the prep station. Customers stared sometimes. Maybe I looked like someone they knew. Maybe they were zoning out. But when I glanced up again, his eyes were still locked on me. Something about his posture was wrong. Not aggressive, not exactly threatening. Just fixed, like he'd been waiting for me, and nothing else in the room mattered. Tyler cleared his throat. "You ordering, man?" The guy tilted his head a fraction. Then he smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It wasn't friendly. It was a slow, stretch-thin smile that didn't touch his eyes. "You think my van will fit in that space outside?" he asked. His voice was soft, polite even, but the way he said it made the hairs on my arm stand up. I glanced toward the lot. The only open spot was next to the dumpster, barely big enough for a sedan, let alone anything bigger. Tyler shrugged. "What kind of van you got?" The man's smile twitched wider. "A big one." I felt my stomach knot. Tyler laughed lightly. You can try, but it's tight. Probably not gonna fit, though." The man didn't look at Tyler. His eyes stayed on me. "Maybe you could come out. Help me park." My throat felt dry. "I think you can tell if it fits," I said, keeping my voice even. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out. The door chimed softly behind him. The college kids collected their pizza and left, the door slamming behind them with a gust of cold air. Tyler smirked. "People are weird, man." I went to the front window. Parked half a block down, under a burnout streetlight, was a large white panel van. Not one of the newer, clean ones either. This one was dented along the side, paint chipped, back doors streaked with grime. The guy climbed in, but he didn't drive into the open spot. He didn't move at all. He just sat there. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe he was just texting someone, but my gut wouldn't let it go. At midnight, Tyler leaned on the counter. "Hey, if you're good here, I might dip early. Got class in the morning." I hesitated. "Yeah, sure." The second the door closed behind him, I regretted it. The next hour dragged. A couple delivery drivers popped in and out, but otherwise it was silent except for the hum of the ovens and the faint whoosh of cars on the highway a few streets over. Every time I looked toward the window, the van was still there. By 1:10 a.m., I'd locked the front door, flipped the close sign, and was sweeping up. The van hadn't budged. At 1:22 a.m., I shut off the ovens, grabbed my bag, and killed the lights. The store plunged into a dim orange glow from the street lamps outside. I unlocked my car, parked just a few feet from the dumpster space. That's when I noticed the back door of the van was open, just a few inches. A cold wave rolled through me. I quickened my pace, eyes fixed on my car. My keys jingled in my hand. "Hey!" The voice came from behind me. I turned slowly. He was standing by the van now, hoodie sleeves hanging over his hands. His smile was gone. "Watch my van for me," he said. Confusion flickered through my fear. "What?" Movement caught my eye. 4 figures stepped out from the shadows along the wall, hooded, faces hidden. They started walking toward me. My heart kicked into overdrive. They were between me and the street. My only option was my car. I fumbled the keys. They slipped from my hands, clattering onto the pavement. Footsteps sped up behind me. I snatched the keys, yanked the door open, and dove inside. My thumb hit the lock just as a hand smacked against the glass. 4 shapes surrounded the car. The blond man stayed back, watching. I jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared. They didn't move. I threw it into reverse, tires screeching, the smell of burnt rubber filling the air. They jumped back just in time. I didn't stop, didn't look back. I drove straight home, hands gripping the wheels so tight they ached. I parked 2 streets over, just in case. I never called the police. What would I say? Some guy asked me to help him park and then, what? Tried to kidnap me? Rob me? I don't know what would have happened if I'd hesitated. I just know I wouldn't be here to write this. Now, every time I see a white van, even in broad daylight, my chest tightens. And if anyone ever asks you to watch their van late at night, don't stop, don't talk, just get in your car and go. Story 6. I wasn't expecting anything unusual that night. It was just supposed to be another Saturday evening, a small slice of family time in the middle of our chaotic lives. Eric and I had been married 9 years, and in that time, we learned how to make do with little pockets of togetherness. He worked grueling 12-hour shifts as a journeyman electrician for a construction company in Chicago, often gone before sunrise and home well after dark. I was holding down 2 part-time jobs, one as a receptionist at a dentist's office, and the other stocking shelves at a local supermarket. Between us, our schedules barely touched, but Saturday nights were sacred. No matter how tired we were, no matter how many bills were stacked on the kitchen counter, we carved out that one evening a week for dinner out with our 7-year-old son, Mason. It wasn't fancy, sometimes just burgers, sometimes Chinese takeout. But it was ours. That week, Mason had made up his mind early. "Domino's," he said on Wednesday night, mouth full of Cheerios. "You sure?" I'd asked, wiping spilled milk off the counter. He nodded vigorously. "Extra cheese, stuffed crust, the big one." So I thought nothing of it when Saturday rolled around and he stuck to his choice. Domino's wasn't my favorite. I could make better sauce at home. But Mason was a pizza fanatic. I figured we'd eat, head home, maybe watch a movie before bed. But looking back, there was something different about the way he'd asked that morning. He didn't have the usual sparkle in his eyes. He wasn't bouncing up and down in his chair or rattling off toppings. It was quieter, more deliberate. We left the house around 10:20 p.m. Eric had insisted on a late dinner since he'd gotten off work late, and Mason had been napping on the couch. I remember glancing at the dashboard clock as we pulled into the parking lot. 10:46 p.m. This Domino's wasn't one of the nice ones in a busy shopping plaza. It sat alone on the edge of Franklin Avenue, just before the long stretch of industrial warehouses that led out toward the interstate. The glowing blue sign flickered occasionally, and the parking lot was mostly empty except for a dusty white sedan parked near the dumpster. Inside, the smell of baking dough and melted cheese wrapped around us. A young man with a buzz cut stood behind the counter punching something into the register. In the far corner, a middle-aged guy in an apron was tossing dough. And by the soda fountain, leaning against the wall with her phone in hand, was a girl in a blue Domino's polo, maybe 19 or 20. She had her hair pulled into a loose ponytail and was scrolling absently, barely looking up when we came in. Mason noticed her immediately. His steps slowed, and I saw the faintest blush creep up his cheeks. He wasn't shy by nature, but I could tell he was aware of her in a way I'd never seen before. Eric grinned. "Think he's got himself a little crush," he whispered in my ear. I elbowed him. Be nice. We approached the counter. Mason cleared his throat. One large cheese stuffed crust pizza. Family size, he said, eyes flicking briefly toward the girl. The cashier rang it up and handed us our receipt. Be about 15 minutes, he said. We took a seat near the big front window. The restaurant was almost silent except for the hum of the refrigerators and the occasional hiss from the ovens. Outside, the street lamps cast pale cones of light onto the cracked asphalt. I noticed the cashier glance toward the hallway leading to the restrooms more than once, a faint crease between his brows. The girl by the soda fountain didn't move from her spot, thumbs tapping lazily at her phone. The flickering light above her made her shadow jump slightly on the wall behind. I didn't think much of it. Not then. 15 minutes later, the pizza arrived. Eric started slicing it while Mason sipped from his soda. Then he pushed his cup away. I need to go to the bathroom, he said. I'll come with you, I started, but he shook his head quickly. Number I can go. You sure? Yeah, I'm fine. It wasn't like him to refuse help, but I didn't want to embarrass him in front of the girl, so I let him go. The bathroom hallway was short, just 2 doors, marked men and women. I watched him disappear down it, then turn back to the pizza. Eric and I talked for a bit, work, bills, small stuff, until I realized he'd been gone longer than usual. I glanced at my phone. 5 minutes. By the time it hit 10 minutes, I was frowning. He's taking a while. Eric pushed his chair back. I'll check. I'll never forget the sound of his footsteps, fast, uneven, as he came running from the hallway. He was carrying Mason in his arms. My son's head lolled against his father's chest, eyes half open but unfocused. His small body was limp, his skin pale, and there was a damp patch on the front of his pants. His lips moved like he wanted to speak, but no sound came out. What happened? I scrambled to my feet, my chair screeching across the tile. I found him on the floor, Eric said, his voice tight with panic. We're leaving, now. We bolted for the car, leaving the pizza untouched on the table. The drive to Franklin General was a blur of red lights and my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Mason didn't speak, didn't even seem fully awake. I kept my hand on his chest, feeling the faint rise and fall. At the ER, doctors ran tests, vitals, blood work. They told us his temperature was slightly high but not dangerous. His blood pressure was elevated. No head injury. No drugs in his system. Likely a fainting episode, they said. We took him home a little after 1 a.m. That night, I made him sleep in our bed. I don't know if it was to keep him safe or to keep me from losing my mind. At exactly 2:47 a.m., Mason woke up screaming. It wasn't just fear, it was terror. His body shook violently, his hands gripping my nightshirt like he thought I'd disappear if he let go. I rocked him until he stopped trembling, whispering, "You're safe. Mommy's here." But it didn't stop. The next night, 2:47 a.m., the same, and the night after that, and the night after. Within a week, Mason was different. He stopped talking altogether, stopped laughing, wouldn't go down the hallway alone, wouldn't use the bathroom without one of us standing outside the door. When I asked what happened that night, he'd just shake his head, eyes filling with tears. Then one evening, desperate to see him smile, I said, "Remember that girl at Domino's? The one you—" His head snapped up. His eyes went wide. "He's going to kill her," Mason whispered. I froze. "What? Who? He's going to kill her, Mommy." His voice rose into a shriek so raw it made my skin crawl. Then, just like that, he fainted. While Eric stayed with Mason at the hospital, I drove back to Domino's. I needed to know. The parking lot was nearly empty again. Inside, a lone man was mopping the floor. I asked about the girl from last week. His expression darkened. You didn't hear?" "Number hear what?" "She died. That same night." The words didn't register at first. Died? She went to the bathroom before closing, never came back. We found her on the floor. No signs of anything. Just gone. 19 years old. Doctor said heart attack. His voice lowered. But she was healthy. When I got home, Mason was asleep. On the floor by his bed lay his notebook. On the open page was a drawing, crude, childlike, of a tall, shadowy figure with two curling horns. Beneath it, in shaky handwriting, it whispered to me in the bathroom, and I knew, without understanding how, that whatever had been in that bathroom with my son was still out there. Story 7, I used to think pizza was the one food that could never betray me. Friday nights after high school football games, late night study sessions in college, lazy Sundays with nothing but TV and comfort food, pizza was there for all of it. The smell of bubbling cheese, the crispy crust that cracked just right when you bit into it, the tang of tomato sauce that somehow made everything feel okay. Not anymore. My name's Daniel Reed, and I'm 31 years old. I work as a detective now in a mid-sized city called Everett, Ohio, but 3 years ago I was just a rookie cop, 28, fresh out of the academy, still wearing that mix of blind optimism and I'm invincible attitude they drill into you. That night was supposed to be nothing, just another slow evening at the station, maybe a couple of noise complaints, a drunk driver or two. Instead, it ended up changing the way I look at my badge, my job, and, God help me, pizza. It started on a Tuesday night in late October, right before Halloween. The air had that cold bite that makes you want to keep your jacket zipped all the way up, and a thin drizzle slicked the streets outside the station. I was at my desk, sipping burnt coffee from a paper cup, pretending to read through old case files. Across from me, my partner, Mark Delaney, was leaning back in his chair, scrolling through his phone and muttering about his divorce. "You know what she wants now?" Mark said without looking up. "Half my retirement. Half. Like I've got some gold-plated pension." I gave him a half smile, the kind you use when you're not really listening, but don't want to be a jerk. Then the desk phone rang, an old beige relic that still had a cord. We both looked at it for a second, like neither of us expected it to ring at all. "Reed," Mark said, jerking his chin at it. "You're the rookie. You get it." I picked it up. "Everett PD, Officer Reed speaking." At first, all I heard was breathing, ragged, uneven, like the caller had just run a marathon. Then a man's voice, shaky, almost childlike. "Help me. Please, he's gonna kill me." I straightened in my chair. "Sir, where are you right now?" I don't know. A bank, I think." "Yeah, a bank. He strapped something to me. A bomb." "Oh, God." Every muscle in my body went tight. "Okay, slow down. Who did this to you?" Before he could answer, another voice cut in. Louder, harder. "Shut up and do as I say, or I push the button." And then, click. Dead air. I just stared at the receiver for a second before putting it down. "Mark," I said quietly, "we've got a hostage situation. Possible explosives." 15 minutes later, we were in the back of a cruiser, sirens cutting through the rain. Dispatch had traced the call to First National Bank over on Lakeview Avenue. By the time we pulled up, the whole block was chaos. Civilians behind barricades, red and blue lights bouncing off wet pavement, and SWAT trucks unloading men in black gear. The glass doors of the bank were shut tight. No movement inside, no sound. The only thing on the sidewalk was a pizza delivery bag, soaked from the rain, lying open with a Domino's receipt flapping in the wind. Our commanding officer, Lieutenant Harris, was already barking orders. "Snipers, take positions. SWAT, prepare for breach. Nobody moves until we know what we're walking into." And then, just like something out of a nightmare, the bank doors opened. A man stumbled out. He was wearing a Domino's uniform, but the shirt was soaked through with sweat and streaked with blood. His face was pale, his eyes darting like a trapped animal. In one hand, he clutched a pistol. In the other, a black duffel bag. Strapped to his chest, blinking in the drizzle, was a crude bomb vest. "Stay back," he screamed, his voice cracking. "Don't come near me. Please, just stay back." I stepped forward slowly, my hands out where he could see them. "Sir, my name is Daniel. I'm with the police. We're here to help you. Put the gun down and—" "No," he shouted, almost sobbing. "He's watching. He'll know. He said if you try anything, he'll kill me. And you too." I exchanged a look with Harris. He was already whispering into his radio, no doubt giving the snipers their marks. "Who?" I asked. Who's watching you? The man's breath came in shallow bursts. The guy who ordered the pizza. I just brought him his food. Next thing I know, I'm on the floor, and he's strapping this thing to me. He told me to go to the bank, get the money, or... His voice cracked completely. Or he'd blow me up. I felt my stomach turn. This wasn't a robbery. This was a setup. The red light on his chest blinked again. Faster this time. "Sniper, stand by," Harris said into his radio. "Sir," I tried again. "Put the gun down, and maybe we can..." A single shot rang out. The man screamed and crumpled to the wet pavement, clutching his leg. The duffel bag spilled open, $100 bills fluttering across the sidewalk. And then I heard it. The beeping. Rapid. Urgent. His eyes went wide with sheer terror. "No! No! 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 I told you to stay back!" He clawed at the vest, trying to pull it off, but there wasn't enough time. The world turned into light and heat. The explosion threw me backward. My ears rang, and all I could hear was a dull roar. I remember hitting the pavement hard, the taste of blood in my mouth. Somewhere through the haze, I felt someone dragging me by my vest. Mark's voice shouting my name over and over. When I woke up 2 days later in the hospital, they told me 2 officers had died. 5 more, including me, had been injured. The delivery driver never had a chance. And the man who ordered that pizza, the one who used an innocent guy as a walking bomb, he was gone, vanished, no fingerprints, no cameras catching his face, just gone. We've chased leads for 3 years, but whoever he was, he planned it perfectly. Sometimes I still see the delivery guy's face when I close my eyes. The way he looked at us like we were his last hope. The way we failed him. His last words echo in my head almost every night. I was just delivering pizza. And that's why I haven't touched a slice since. Story 8. I never pictured myself spending my retirement tossing pizza dough in a strip mall Domino's, but after my husband Frank passed, the silence in our little house on Elm Street became unbearable. We'd been together 43 years, and when he died of a sudden heart attack 2 winters ago, it was like the air left the rooms. My grown kids live in other states, and while they call when they can, phone calls aren't the same as company. So when my neighbor's daughter mentioned the Domino's on Main Street was hiring part-timers, I took it. Not for the paycheck. God knows Social Security covers my basics. But for something to keep my mind from going stale. The job gave me a reason to change out of sweatpants, see other people, and not sink into that slow, heavy kind of loneliness that eats you from the inside. It wasn't glamorous work, but I liked the rhythm, the hum of the ovens, the squeak of sneakers on the tile, the occasional banter with coworkers. I somehow became the go-to night shift closer, mostly because the younger employees hated staying until midnight, and I didn't mind. Nights were slow in Willow Creek. This wasn't Cleveland or Cincinnati. After 10 p.m., Main Street turned into a ghost town. Most customers after that hour were tired factory workers grabbing a quick meal or teenagers trying to spend their last few dollars on cheesy bread. That night in early March, the air outside was bitter. My breath made little clouds when I walked from my car to the store. I clocked in at 8:03 p.m., tied on my black apron, and went straight to prepping dough. "Evening, Marlene," called Corey, our driver. Tall kid, early 20s, always in a hoodie even when it was snowing. "Evening yourself," I said. "Where's Tina?" "Register duty tonight." Corey nodded toward the front. Tina was a high school senior with pink streaks in her hair and the kind of energy you only have when you're 17. She waved without looking up from her phone. Business trickled in slowly. By 10:30, we'd had maybe 6 orders. Corey was out on a run, leaving Tina and me alone. "Quiet night," Tina murmured, chewing on a pen cap as she scrolled. "Think we'll get slammed at close?" "Not a chance," I said. "Too cold for trouble." I'd regret those words. At 10:47, the bell over the front door jingled. I glanced up from the prep table. A man stood just inside the doorway. He wasn't like our usual customers. Tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches, with a lean build that looked more wiry than healthy. His jeans were caked in mud, and his heavy work jacket had dark stains on the sleeves. His hands, gripping a crumpled grocery bag to his chest, were black with grime. His hair stuck out from under a faded ball cap, and his eyes were restless, scanning the room like he was tracking invisible flies. Tina straightened behind the counter. "Hi there. Welcome to Domino's. What can I get for you tonight?" The man didn't answer right away. He just stared at the glowing menu board behind her, his lips moving like he was mumbling to himself. I wiped my hands on my apron and came closer. "Sir?" I asked gently. His gaze snapped to mine so fast I felt it in my gut. "Pizza," he rasped. His voice was dry, like he hadn't spoken in days. "Okay," I said slowly, keeping my tone neutral. "What kind?" For a long beat, he didn't speak. Then, "Whatever's cheapest." I glanced at Tina. "We've got a medium cheese special. $5. He gave a single sharp nod but didn't reach for a wallet. "That'll be $5.41 with tax," Tina said, fingers hovering over the register. The man adjusted the bag in his arms and said, low and deliberate, "Ain't got it yet." I felt my stomach tighten. "We can start your order when—" "I said," he interrupted, "it's coming." The way he said it wasn't angry, it was worse. Calm, certain, like the money wasn't the important part. Tina's eyes flicked to me. I gave the smallest nod. "Make the pizza." I just wanted him out quickly. I prepped the dough, sprinkled cheese, slid it into the oven. All the while I could feel his gaze following my every movement. I pretended not to notice, but the back of my neck prickled. When the oven timer dinged, I pulled the pizza, cut it, and set it on the warmer. "Sir, your order's ready," I called. He didn't move. "Sir?" That's when I noticed what was in the grocery bag. He had set it on the table in the corner booth and was digging through it. I caught a glint of metal, a silver aerosol can. His other hand dipped into his jacket and came out holding a cheap plastic lighter. My breath caught. I took one step toward Tina just as the click echoed across the empty lobby. A jet of flame burst out, bright and hot, hitting the napkin dispenser on the counter. Paper ignited instantly. "Jesus!" Tina yelped, stumbling back. "Hey, stop!" I shouted, grabbing the metal pizza pan off the prep station. The man vaulted the counter like it was nothing, sending the register crashing to the floor. He lunged for Tina, one hand twisted in her hair, the other still holding the lighter and can. I didn't think. I swung the pizza pan. It connected with his head in a sickening clang. He staggered, grip loosening just enough for Tina to wrench free. "Back! Storage room!" I yelled. We bolted through the swinging kitchen door, Tina slamming it shut behind us. I grabbed the mop bucket and jammed it under the handle. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Tina's hands were shaking so badly she could barely dial 911. He's got fire," she stammered. The door shuddered. Once. Twice. Then it flew open, the mop bucket skidding across the floor. He stood there, silhouetted in the doorway, grinning with teeth the color of old coffee. "You think the cops get here in time?" he said. "They don't." Flame roared from the can again, licking the ceiling tiles. The smell of burning grease filled the air. I grabbed the nearest thing, a number 10 can of pizza sauce, and hurled it. It smacked him in the temple. He cursed, dropping the can. "Run!" I screamed. We hit the emergency exit. The siren blared as we spilled into the alley, cold air burning my lungs. I could hear his boots pounding behind us. Tina was faster. She sprinted toward Main Street, waving frantically at a passing car. I risked a glance back. He was gaining, face twisted with something between rage and glee. Headlights swept over us. A horn blared. I dove for the curb. The man froze in the beams for half a second, then turned and ran, disappearing into the dark as red and blue lights closed in. The cops never caught him. The fire damage kept us closed for weeks. Tina quit. Corey didn't come back. I told myself I'd return when the store reopened. But every time I smelled gasoline or heard the click of a lighter, my chest seized up. Some nights I lie in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying that grin in the doorway. And I wonder, when he ran into that dark, was it to disappear or to wait? Because in a town like Willow Creek, people don't stay gone forever.